Before the story even begins, imagine this. You're walking down the street and you witness a man get attacked just because of the color of his skin, completely unaware that the person he's attacking is someone with more authority, more training, and more power than he could ever imagine. That's what happens next. And if you care about justice, real justice, then hit that subscribe button right now because the story you're about to hear will make your heart race, your blood boil, and your sense of right and wrong snap into perfect focus as we dive into a moment that exposes the best and worst in people across the United States and United Kingdom. This is a story about prejudice, power, consequences, and the truth that refuses to stay hidden. Now, let's begin. The day started like any other in the bustling downtown district of Brookford City, a place where old brick buildings stood shoulder to shoulder with sleek new towers, creating a skyline that looked as if history and the future were constantly wrestling for dominance. The morning sun hit the glass windows like shards of gold, bouncing into the faces of commuters who hurried across the streets clutching their coffees and backpacks, barely noticing the world around them. Among them walked a man dressed simply in jeans and a navy jacket, with a quiet confidence in his step that made him blend in, yet stand out, depending on who watched him closely enough. His name was Marcus Hale, but nobody on the street knew that he was the police captain of the entire Brookford City Metropolitan Department. Off-duty, he looked like any other citizen, except for the calm authority in his eyes and a slight tension in his shoulders from years of service, danger, responsibility, paperwork, crisis negotiations, and everything else that came with commanding one of the largest precincts on the East Coast. But as he walked toward the corner bookstore to grab a travel guide for his upcoming trip, another figure in the crowd watched him. Though watched was too polite of a word, stared, glared, judged. His name was Trent Callister, a middle-aged white man with a permanent scowl etched into his face, like life had given him many opportunities to be better, and he'd refused every single one of them. He stood outside the corner grocery store, leaning against a lamppost with a coffee he hadn't paid for, muttering under his breath about the changing neighborhood, as if diversity had personally offended him. Trent noticed Marcus walking by and immediately stiffened, narrowing his eyes like a predator who thought he'd found prey. He didn't know Marcus, had never seen him before, but to Trent, that didn't matter. The color of Marcus's skin was enough for him to assume everything he needed to know in his twisted worldview. He pushed off the lamppost, taking a few aggressive steps forward, fueled by a toxic mix of ignorance, insecurity, and the ugly belief that he could dominate anyone he chose. Marcus kept walking, unaware of the storm about to collide with him, focused instead on the mental list of things he needed to buy. Guidebook, protein bars, maybe a new pair of headphones since his old ones had snapped last week. As he approached the bookstore entrance, he reached for the handle, when suddenly a harsh voice cracked through the air behind him. "Hey, you think you can just walk around here like you own the place?" Marcus paused, glanced back, confused. "Is there a problem, sir?" he asked calmly. But Trent didn't want calm. He wanted conflict. "Yeah, there's a problem. People like you think you can do whatever you want." A few bystanders turned their heads. Marcus stayed poised, shoulders relaxed. "I'm just trying to buy a book." "Yeah? Well, maybe you should go back where you came from." Trent spat, stepping closer, chest puffed out as if trying to intimidate him. Marcus inhaled slowly, the way he had taught dozens of officers during de-escalation training. "Sir, I don't want any trouble. Please step back." But Trent's face turned red with rage, and before Marcus could react, Trent shoved him hard, sending Marcus stumbling back against the bookstore window. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone said, "Hey, leave him alone." But Trent didn't stop. He lunged forward, grabbing Marcus by the collar. "I'm going to teach you a lesson." Marcus raised his hands protectively but didn't fight back. Not yet. Not unless he had no choice. "Let go," Marcus warned firmly, voice low. "Now." But Trent, drunk on adrenaline and bigotry, swung his fist, aiming for Marcus's jaw. Marcus moved with perfect reflexes, not striking back but dodging, stepping aside, letting Trent stumble forward. "I said stop," Marcus said sharply, voice edged with authority. Something about the tone made Trent freeze for a moment, but only a moment, because humiliation mixed poorly with ego, and Trent felt the eyes of the crowd watching him fail to land a punch. That made him even angrier. He grabbed a metal trash can lid and swung it like a weapon. Marcus knew then that he had no choice. In one swift motion, he disarmed Trent, grabbed his wrist, twisted it behind his back, and pressed him firmly against the wall, not hurting him more than necessary, but securing him completely. Trent shrieked, "Get your hands off me! You can't touch me! I'll have you arrested, you!" Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his badge. Trent fell silent, completely silent. The badge glinted in the sunlight. The words police captain gleamed in bold lettering. Marcus leaned in just enough for Trent to see it clearly. "You attacked a law enforcement officer," Marcus said quietly. "A police captain. On a public street, in front of dozens of witnesses." The crowd murmured. Phones recorded. Snapshots. Videos. A story unfolding. Trent's face drained of color. "Captain," he stuttered. But yes," Marcus replied coldly. "And you're under arrest." But that was only the beginning, because the arrest triggered an investigation, and the investigation uncovered things about Trent's past: records, hidden complaints, violent patterns, affiliations he thought he could keep secret, people he had hurt, threats he had made. And as each truth surfaced, the city watched, shocked, horrified, captivated. Marcus became not just the victim of an attack, but the symbol of justice pushing back against hate. Trent's life unraveled. Court hearings, protests, media coverage. People he had bullied in the past stepped forward. Marcus, despite everything, handled the situation with grace, dignity, discipline, and the same calm leadership that made him the youngest captain in Brookford history. And through each chapter, the tension rose, twists, confrontations, revelations, until the final moment where Trent faced the full consequences of his choices and Marcus stood as living proof that no amount of hate could overpower integrity. Before the dust from the arrest settled, Marcus found himself standing in the center of a storm he neither asked for nor intended to provoke, but one that now engulfed Brookford City like a wildfire spreading through dry fields. As Trent Callister was taken into custody, screaming about conspiracies and setups, even though the entire street had seen him initiate the attack, the videos of the incident were already climbing through social media feeds, hitting tens of thousands of views in minutes, each clip showing clearly how the situation unfolded, how Marcus remained composed, how Trent exploded with hateful aggression, and how the truth about the power dynamic flipped in an instant when the badge appeared. Marcus didn't want the attention. He didn't want the praise. He didn't want the headlines calling him the hero captain who faced hate on his day off. All he wanted was a quiet day, a walk, a book. But fate rarely cares what anyone wants, and the shockwaves of Trent's actions began to reach every corner of the city, pulling up old tensions, reigniting old debates, and shining a harsh spotlight on the undercurrents of prejudice that many pretended no longer existed. After giving a full statement, Marcus returned to the precinct, not because he had to, but because he needed to make sure everything was being handled properly. Inside the station, officers who had worked under him for years approached with a mix of anger, respect, and disbelief. "Captain, are you sure you're okay?" Officer Dana Ramirez asked, her eyes wide with concern. "I'm fine," Marcus assured her. "Just another day." "That wasn't just another day," Sergeant Tom Lennox muttered, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. "That guy came at you like he wanted to cause real harm." Marcus didn't deny it. He didn't need to, but he also didn't want his officers fueled by emotion. "The best thing we can do," Marcus said, "is handle this case by the book. No special treatment against him, no special treatment for me. Fair, thorough, professional." They nodded, trusting him. They always did. But as the team dispersed, Marcus felt a pressure building, not physical but emotional, like the weight of the city had settled on his shoulders. Hours later, Marcus returned home, stepping into his quiet apartment where the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant noise of traffic created a peaceful contrast to the chaos outside. He sank onto the couch, rubbing the back of his neck, thinking about Trent's rage-filled eyes, the moment he swung the trash can lid. The eruption of hatred so intense it felt as if Trent had been waiting his whole life for a moment to unleash it. Why him? Why that day? Why that angle of hate? But the question Marcus didn't yet know was that Trent's attack wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't mere coincidence. Trent had been involved in things, groups, connections, hidden circles that thrived on provoking incidents, escalating tensions, stirring chaos. And Marcus, unknowingly, had stepped into the crosshairs of something bigger. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of the city, two men in leather jackets sat in a booth, whispering urgently as a shaky phone screen replayed the footage of the attack. "That's him," one of them muttered, tapping the video. "Trent really did it. Idiot." "Did he know who the guy was?" the other asked. "No, but he does now." They looked at each other grimly. "This complicates things." Back in the city, Marcus tried to unwind, but his phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters requesting interviews he declined, community leaders asking for statements he wasn't ready to give, and messages from people he didn't know offering support, prayers, thanks, demands, commentary. He ignored them all for the moment, standing up to grab a glass of water when suddenly he noticed a shadow moving outside his window. He paused, listening. Silence, but something felt off. He approached slowly, heart steady but alert, the instincts of a seasoned officer kicking in, and peeked through the blinds. Nothing, just the street, the lamppost, the parked cars. He exhaled, brushing off the tension. But the feeling lingered like a warning echo. The next morning he returned to the station where Detective Aisha Grant approached him with a thick folder. "Captain, you should see this," she said, handing it over. Marcus flipped through the pages, complaints, reports, incident summaries. "This is all Callister?" Marcus asked. "Yes. He's been involved in more altercations than we realized. Verbal abuse, threats, fights, and look at this." She pointed to a name on a cross-reference document. "He's connected to the Iron Patriot Front." Marcus stiffened. The organization was known, barely, but known enough. A self-proclaimed heritage group, but the city knew better. They were a hate group masked with patriotic imagery and coded language, avoiding open trouble but quietly recruiting angry men like Trent. "Do we know how involved he is?" Marcus asked. "Nothing definite," Aisha replied, "but based on what we found, he wasn't just on the sidelines." Marcus closed the folder. The room felt colder. "We'll need surveillance," he said. "Find out who he's been meeting with, talking to, messaging. Already on it." But investigations took time and the world didn't stop turning. As the day unfolded, Marcus found himself pulled into back-to-back meetings, then a review board discussion, then a public safety conference call. He couldn't focus. His mind kept drifting to the folder, the connection, the attack, the sense that something was beginning, not ending. Late that afternoon, Marcus left the station, walking toward his car in the secure lot when his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Captain Hale," he said. Silence. Then a distorted voice crackled through the line. "You should have stayed down." Marcus stopped mid-step. "Who is this?" Another distorted breath. "You embarrassed one of ours. There will be consequences." The line clicked dead. Marcus didn't move for several seconds. The call wasn't random. It wasn't a prank. It was a threat, a direct one. And now the attack on the street no longer felt like an isolated incident. It felt like a trapdoor had opened beneath the city, revealing a network of hatred ready to strike back. Marcus knew what needed to happen next. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the dangerous road ahead would expose a conspiracy deeper than anyone expected, a betrayal closer than comfort, and a twist that would change everything about who he could trust, how far the enemy would go, and why he had been targeted in the first place. And the men in the bar, they weren't done. In fact, they were just starting, because Trent's arrest had forced their hand, and now Marcus Hale, the man they should never have provoked, had become their biggest problem. Marcus didn't tell anyone about the anonymous call at first, not because he wanted to hide it, but because he needed to think clearly before escalating matters. He drove home with the same calm posture he always carried, but beneath that calm was a sharpened edge, a hyper-awareness of every car behind him, every pedestrian glancing too long, every sound that didn't fit the rhythm of the night. He parked beneath the soft orange glow of the streetlight and scanned the sidewalk before stepping out. Everything seemed normal, but normal was beginning to feel like an illusion, thin and breakable. As he walked up the steps to his apartment building, he noticed the faintest scratch on the railing, fresh, metal exposed beneath scraped paint. It wasn't conclusive, but it was new. Too new. He opened the door slowly, scanning the interior. Nothing disturbed, nothing stolen, nothing touched. But his instincts whispered again, "You're being watched." Hours later, while he reviewed paperwork at his kitchen table, he received a message from Detective Aisha Grant, an urgent one. "Captain, you need to see something. Check your email." Marcus opened his laptop and clicked on the message she'd sent. Attached were surveillance images from a traffic camera near the bar where the two men had watched Trent's arrest footage the previous day. Aisha had tracked some of Trent's known associates, cross-referencing their recent movements with camera feeds. In one of the photos, a man with a thick beard and a skull-patterned bandana was captured passing something to another man in a hoodie. In another image, the same two were shown getting into a black pickup truck with a partially covered license plate. Marcus zoomed in. The bearded man was someone he recognized from past intelligence briefings. Calvin Rourke, Marcus muttered, a known extremist, a recruiter, a strategist, and dangerous. Aisha's next message came quickly. We think he's involved, maybe leading something bigger. Call when you can. Marcus typed back, I'm on my way. But before he could grab his jacket, someone knocked on his door. 3 slow knocks. Heavy, intentional. Marcus froze. He moved quietly to the peephole and peered through it. A delivery man stood outside holding a small box, but something felt off. He wasn't wearing the company's standard uniform. The logo on the box was smudged. His eyes kept darting down the hallway. Marcus unlatched the door, but only an inch. Yes, he asked. Package for Marcus Hale, the man said, his voice low and poorly disguised. I didn't order anything. It says urgent, the man insisted, pushing the box forward. Marcus looked at the box again. No return address, no label, no barcode. Leave it on the mat, Marcus said. I'll pick it up later. The man hesitated, irritation flashing across his face for a fraction of a second before he forced a smile. Sure thing, he said. He set the box down, walked away. But he didn't go far. Marcus watched through the peephole as the man reached the end of the hall, paused, checked his watch, then walked down the stairs far too slowly for someone who had completed a job. Marcus stepped back, grabbed a pair of gloves from the drawer, and approached the box cautiously. It was too light. Suspiciously light. He placed it on the table, examined the seams, then slowly opened the lid. Inside there was nothing but a single sheet of paper. And on that paper were 3 words written in thick, uneven handwriting. We are coming. Marcus exhaled sharply, scanning the hallway again. The fake delivery man was gone, completely gone. Marcus grabbed the paper with tweezers, sealed it in an evidence bag, locked his apartment, and headed straight to the precinct. When he arrived, Aisha and Sergeant Lennox were waiting for him in the briefing room. Aisha noticed his tense expression. Captain, what happened? Marcus set the evidence bag on the table. Lennox's jaw clenched. They came to your apartment. One of them, Marcus said, or someone working with them. Aisha looked troubled. This is escalating faster than we expected. Marcus nodded. We need to find Rourke before they move. Whatever they're planning, Trent's arrest lit the fuse. Lennox stepped forward. Captain, maybe you should take protective detail just until this settles. Marcus shook his head. No, I'm not hiding in my home while they threaten this city. We stay ahead of them. Aisha brought up a map on the overhead screen showing the last known locations of several suspected Iron Patriot Front members. Red dots scattered across the map like infection points. We think Rourke is gathering the more extreme members, she said, pointing to a cluster near the industrial district. He's been quiet for months, but after Trent's incident went viral, he started moving again. What do we know about their objective? Marcus asked. Aisha hesitated. That's where it gets complicated. She clicked to another slide, showing text pulled from encrypted messages intercepted earlier that week. Words like punishment, retaliation, cleansing, and strike back were repeated multiple times. Then one phrase stood out, take down the face of their system. Lennox looked at Marcus. They mean you. Marcus didn't react outwardly, but Lennox saw it hit him. Aisha added, and they're not talking about just hurting you. They're talking about making an example. Marcus stood still for a long moment, staring at the screen. Then we stopped them first. But the next 24 hours would prove how dangerous the situation had become. The threats escalated, anonymous calls, dark web chatter, a car parked too long across from the station, a drone flying near Marcus's apartment window, and the final straw, someone spray-painted a message on the precinct's back wall overnight, Hail falls soon. The officers grew restless, some angry, some scared, some ready for revenge. Marcus had to calm them constantly, reminding them that fear fuels the enemy, that discipline dismantles them. But deep down, he knew something was looming, something planned, coordinated, and close. And he was right. Because while the police gathered intel, Rourke and his men were preparing for a strike unlike anything Brookford City had seen in decades. One that didn't just target Marcus, one that targeted the entire department. And as night fell, the first move in their plan was already in motion. A van parked outside an empty warehouse where armed men loaded equipment, masks, explosives, and a blueprint of the precinct itself. Tonight, Rourke growled, slamming his fist on the table, we take him down. We take all of them down. And the attack that would shake the city to its core was just hours away.